Hey guys, Mr. Bergman here. Hey, this is kind of different doing a lesson without everybody here in school, but this is where we're at right now. So moving forward, this is the next unit that would have been on our schedule, and it's about equations. We talked a little bit about our equations before you guys left for your break, but we have variables, we have constants. And just as a quick review, if we have this equation right here, 8 equals x plus 3, these two numbers, the 8 and the, or what are known as constants in this case, okay? And this x and this x are both variables. And variables can be basically any letter that represents, any number in the whole wide world, right? So there's our variables. And another key thing here is our inverse operations. And we talked about inverse a little bit when we were doing our fractions before. And inverse is where, let's say I had 1/3 divided by 2/3. If you remember, we would always find the inverse fraction of that second fraction. And the inverse is just really finding the opposite. So that was 2/3. The inverse was 3/2. When we do that, that would change the multiplying, and you would go through and multiply your fractions. So with that being said, inverse operations is really doing the same thing, except you are doing the opposite of whatever operation is doing. The key thing from these equations is really trying to solve for x. We call it solving for x, and you guys did this a little bit in 5th grade, is finding what x is worth. And a lot of you can look at this and probably say, well, x is going to be 5 because 5 plus 3 is 8, right? And x over here is 1 because 1 plus 5 is 6, right? And remember, we always start with a simpler problem, move to a more complicated problem. So with that being said, how this will look is we have to balance our equations. And what we do is we do the inverse operation right here, which is we have a plus 3. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other, okay? When you do that, these 3's cancel out. And this x moves down, and 8 minus 3 is 5. So going through the mathematical process here, the algebraic process, is finding x equals 5 here. Same thing with over here, okay? We have an adding 5, we subtract 5, and subtract 5. And that cancels that, cancels that. Our x gets brought down, and our 6 minus 5 is 1. So x equals 1, or 1 equals x. It's basically, if this goes either way, you can write it like this as well. You can write it like this as well. Either way works, okay? One other one, I know decimals kind of gets on our nerves a little bit, so we'll do a quick decimal one. Hold on one second, 12.75, there you go. Example I wrote down. So on this one, what happens when it's plus y? Are you subtracting y? Absolutely not. Your job is to get this y alone. You don't want a number on this side. So because I have this and it's a positive 3.5, we're going to subtract that 3.5 from here and from here. Okay? So with that being said, this cancels. We have a y by itself. And when you do that, you get 9.25, and that would be your answer. So really, if you think about it, that 9.25 gets plugged into that variable spot, and that makes that answer true. So there's that. We just did some adding questions. The next one is we're going to look at some subtraction. X plus x minus 2 equals 3. I'll put one more over here, which is y minus 6 equals 8. Okay. And while I'm doing this, if you want to write down on the paper and pause the video and try them real quick, absolutely. That would only benefit you. Okay. So looking at this right here, same exact process, except now it's subtraction. So when you look at this, you have x minus 2 equals 3, and that's a really bad 3. My apologies there. X minus 2, and you're going to add 2 and add 2, which would cancel and cancel. This x gets brought down, that equal sign, and then you get a 5. Okay. So again, if you plug that 5 in there, 5 minus 2 would be 3. So that makes that statement true. One time over here, we do y minus 6 equals 8, so we plus 6 and plus 6. Get y equals 14. Same thing, 14 gets plugged in there. 14 minus 6 would definitely give us 8. Okay. Other than that, guys, I hope you know, like, this is kind of how we're going to communicate through this, but practicing these problems is really key. And I'll make sure I write down on Google Classroom where to look for practice problems, and I'll make sure to provide some information on how you can contact me if you need to ask any questions or ask for help from me too. But other than that, guys, that's the start of equations for us and using inverse operations to solve for the variable. The next step from here is we'll be looking at multiplying and dividing. A really cool tool on this is because I'm videotaped and you're watching me, you can pause it, you can rewind it, you can go through that and watch a problem over and over and over again. Okay, whatever you kind of need to do, pause it, rewind it, whatever. If I'm mumbling, sorry. Okay. Hey, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, post on Google Classroom, whatever it might be, and I will get back to you ASAP. Okay. Thanks, guys.